quick video to discuss some of the questions in the taxonomy and courtship exam questions that I set you last week. The first one is quite an important one. It's likely that you're going to get a question like this in an exam. They like you to be able to recognize where meiosis is happening. Remember, meiosis is making of gametes. So gametes are being made. The cells are going from body cells to gamete cells. Body cells are diploid. Gamete cells are haploid. So whenever you have a diagram that looks something like this in the future, if ever you see, I got a pen here, I haven't got a pen. If ever you see a diagram like this in the future, and they're asking you to identify where meiosis happens, look at the symbol for the number of chromosomes in the cell. So these are all N, 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 N. These are all haploid. All of these are haploid. Haploid, 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 haploid. So remember, haploid is N, whereas diploid is 2N. So, this is not working. So, if we want to know where meiosis is happening, it's going to be happening here. It's going to be happening on that arrow, because this is where the cells go from diploid to haploid. Okay. Looking at the next part of this, scientists wanted to calculate the mean volume of the spores. Here's the command term, describe. I'm going to need to move here. So the command term is describe. So you need to be describing how she would calculate the volume and using figure 3. One of the important bits of information that some of you left out was noticing that the magnification was 700. So the first stage, most of you got, measure the diameter of a large number of spores. Okay, say larger number. Don't say quite a few. Say larger number because you want a big sample size. Divide the values by 700. So this is your magnification. Okay, this is your magnification. So that's to find the diameter. And then many of you spoken about the volume of the sphere. So this was really actually quite well answered. Most of you getting a minimum of 2 out of 3 for that. So that's really nice. Okay, going down to the next question. So this was the one about the crickets chirping and what that actually means. Okay, so quite a nice piece talking about data. So when you're looking at this table, there's lots of information that you can get from it. So you've got all these different versions. This is your natural cricket. So your natural cricket is L. And your natural cricket has got 7 chirps to 2 ticks. Then you've got a cricket that doesn't play any song at all. And then you've got different combinations, 7 chirps, no ticks, no chirps, 2 ticks, and so on and so forth. And then you've got the response of the females that showed courtship behavior. Okay, so lots of information here. Looking at the question, the student concluded, so it's saying what the conclusion of the student was. So the student concluded that the number of chirps and ticks is essential for successful stimulating courtship behavior. Do these data support his conclusion? And here we have explain, all right? So they're asking you, do these data, so that means you have to reference the data. So many of you were on the right track, and you were saying that there is, the females do respond even though there are no chirps or ticks and various things that you actually mentioned, but many of you didn't actually use the data in your answer. So if we look at the answer, you can see here referencing the fact that here in the first one they're talking about K, so only 30% carried out courtship when there was no song. So using data, putting data in. All right. Reduced courtship when no ticks, specifying that there are no ticks. Talking about when there's no chirps. Okay. Then coming to the conclusion that courtship, because courtship is happening when there are no ticks and chirps, then there must be something else. They say visual stimulus, but you can say anything else. So there's something else going on. There's something else that the crickets are attracted to. Okay, and then coming to some conclusion about which is more important, the chirps or the ticks, and why. Okay, and then this is always a nice evaluating point, and this is something that I want you to get into the habit of looking at the data and saying, but actually, this data could be improved because the data only showed presence and absence of chirps, so between 0 and 7. Okay, so you could reference that as well. Okay, so that's just a quick point, but I would say most of you did really, really nicely with that question. So well done.